The events in Southport last night were horrifying, but part of a pattern and a grim reminder of the danger of misinformation and the volatility of far-right extremism. In the comments under my last few videos, there's speculation about the identity of the voices heckling Keir Starmer. And I have no doubt that there may well have been a clique that was bussed up to Southport to cause a problem. There are people with no link to Southport who are very emotional and who think they have the answers. They don't have the answers. They have further. They are further inflaming a difficult situation. Following this tragic knife attack that claimed the lives of 3 children, has left so many other children in hospital, as well as 2 adults, the situation has escalated where far-right protesters have hijacked a peaceful vigil, leading to violent clashes with the police. Last night saw the setting alight of police vehicles, the hurling of bricks and glass bottles, the targeting of a local mosque. 39 police officers were injured, with serious incidents including fractures, concussions, while 3 police dogs were also harmed. None of this should be happening. Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, has condemned the violence firmly, stating that those responsible would feel the full force of the law. He's emphasised the rioters' actions were an affront to a grieving community, turning a moment of mourning into chaos. But I think it's all about a fracturing of our society and a lack of trust in the figures of authority, those we should respect, those we should listen to. And the recent events like the Manchester airport event have further undermined our trust in the figures of authority. That is the problem with that event. It's not about who was responsible. It's about the optics undermining our trust in the figures of authority. We see the same sort of thing down in London with the erosion of the judicial service and the fragmentation again, the failure of these services to be mindful of the public image, which is being stripped away. And the response from Starmer marks a continuation of his stance, his firm stance against extremism, his commitment to restoring respect for British politics and for rehabilitating the images of authority in our society. But to do that requires more than just rhetoric and calls for order. It requires a commitment to rethinking our educational principles, to unifying our society. And that means an effort at all levels of our society to develop unity. Unity isn't something that happens magically. It's something that we work on, like friendship. The riots were exacerbated clearly by the spreading of false information. I heard a lot of it on social media. I heard so much. And the identity of the attacker and so on. And a lot of it, you see one strand of speculation in the morning and another strand of speculation in the afternoon. Contradictory. And where does all this come from? Much of it comes from outside the UK. false information, wrongly implicating certain individuals, certain communities, stoking tension, getting everybody at each other's throats. It's as if there is a plan to distract the various communities in our country, to get them all fighting each other. It points to a broader issue of how digital misinformation can escalate into real-world confrontation, into real-world violence, and it highlights the need for more robust online regulation, for public awareness campaigns, but fundamentally for a change in our way of thinking, which is about education. And if we are not using social media, if we are not using the internet in schools right from the beginning, then we are failing children. And the internet needs to be integrated into our teaching, because it's not a tool from outside; it's a tool from inside now. In the same way as in the 16th, 17th, 18th century, we realized the need to integrate books into our routine education. And then in the early 20th century, wireless and television into our mainstream education, but we have not integrated social media and the internet into our mainstream education. In fact, we've taken the view that phones should be excluded from school. What utter tosh! What utter tosh! We need to teach children how to use phones, how to use social media. We need to embrace technology, not defy it. And we need to teach children to be aware of voices that sound reasonable. And we need to resist this tribal obsession. I had people come to my door yesterday, and we were talking about social media, YouTube, and so on, and which side do I support? And I think that's not true. That's not what I do. I think I'm rapidly coming to the view that my channel is about being anti-tribal. And I'm certainly aware that I'm getting attacked by both sides at the moment, which probably means I'm doing the right job. And I think, oh, people saying I'm blocking you, I'm desubscribing, and I think, well, why are you doing this? I have no idea what I'm supposed to have said, but because I'm not being super supportive of one side or super supportive of the other side, then I'm at fault. And of course, people don't watch the videos. They go by the titles and they assume, this person belongs to this camp. So we will leave comments accordingly. And people, interestingly, they make a comment, they cut and paste, and then they make it in other videos as well, exactly the same comment. And some of these comments are just designed to cause problems. We need to deal with intolerance, and we need to re-establish trust in our society. And this incident underscores the problem that needs to be addressed. So while Starmer's government has pledged to tackle issues like economic inequality and improve the cohesion in our society, the events in Southport reveal a more immediate and pressing need to counteract hate speech, to ensure the safety of all communities, to grow unity throughout Britain, to to challenge the fragmentation of our society. And without rebuilding the trust in the judiciary, in the police force, in the authorities in our society, we cannot rely on statements. We cannot rely on the authorities to do their job because we don't trust. And it's that's why events like the airport bomb, the Manchester airport kicking are so important. It's not about whether this policeman is guilty or culpable. It's about the optics of that image. It's not about seeing it in context. It's not about Richard Tice or Lee Anderson wanting to give the police officer a medal. It's about the damage that image has done. It's about the significance of social media, the impact of social media on our lives and on framing the narrative. And it's also about the failure of the police force to put out a personal image, to personally reassure communities, while it keeps its distance, while it depersonalizes the force, while it becomes a sort of bogeyman, like a Judge Dredd, while the judiciary is exposed as simply raking in money for itself rather than rewarding those who win and punishing those who fail and who are exposed as criminals. The story of Hugh Grant saying that he withdrew from the hacking case because to win would have cost him millions. That tells us a great deal about the inadequacy of our legal system, that it's in there for itself. The whistleblowers in the NHS and the failure that they all encounter to push against the system because they are seen as a problem despite all the legislation to support whistleblowers. There is no support. The Windrush, the Grenfell, the Post Office hiatus, the failure of those groups to move forward in any meaningful way, the derisory offers which are made, and yet the judicial system is raking in money all the time. We can't turn a blind eye to this. It is so obvious. And the government, the last government, has so cheapened politics. It's going to take not 5 years, it's going to take a generation for politics to recover from the damage done by this introspective obsession, which I think was turbocharged by the Brexit debate, which still continues, of course, and the attempt to offload the problem onto migration. They're just finding a bogeyman. And the response from the authorities and community leaders to the problems in Southport will be crucial in healing divisions in the short term, ensuring justice for those affected. But in the long term, the broader challenge remains. We need to foster a society where tragic events are not exploited by extremist groups who sow discord, which means restoring trust in our society, which means educating children and adults into being more perspicacious about what they hear, see on the internet, on social media. I don't think it's necessarily about imposing more rules, regulation about social media. It's about educating people to be less tribal, to listen to what is being said and to be prepared to reject it. You know, people need to get away from this football approach to conversation. You don't listen to people because they're on your team. You listen to people because they've got something to say, or because they happen to be in your orbit. You listen to them. You engage with them if you can. You reject what they say. You accept what they say. You modify what they say. But it's just words. And this is the problem, the creeping propaganda, the sloganization of society. And we have to get beyond that point. And I think it starts at primary school. I think it starts by bringing phones into the classroom. I think it starts by teachers telling children to find the information on their laptops. Not by suppressing this, not by the teacher thinking that they can control it. They can't. You can't control this madness. All you can do is try to understand it. And so it doesn't matter. The government can put out its legislation and people can go off and get a VPN. The suppression, the censorship of the internet does not work. We've seen that in Russia. We've seen it in China. People get a VPN. They find a way around it. There's still that undercurrent who are listening to what is being said. In the case of Russia, what is being said on the internet quietly is probably far more helpful, far more peaceful than what is being done publicly. Though it's not true that the internet is always a problem. It can be a salvation, a voice of goodness. But the tribalism, the way people listen to the internet, particularly in Britain, needs to go. This idea of, are you for or against Tommy Robinson? What utter tosh. Utter tosh. Find some sort of balanced position. And so yes, I'm determined that my site, my YouTube, will be something that challenges the tribalism. I don't set out to be the voice of reason, by the way. I'm not an Alex Belfield. I don't set out to be the media. I set out to challenge the tribalism, to question, to be, if necessary, the gadfly and the giggle. I think we have great need of that, the question mark. And without that, our society is going to collapse. My heart goes out to the people of Southport, utterly. Not only this awful tragedy, but then the riot as well. It is utterly heartbreaking.